Okay, welcome back everyone to Road to Second Chance. As ever, my name is Gavin and I'm the host and creator of Survivor Los Angeles, which is a one-day fan-made game of Survivor based in Los Angeles, California. To date, our series has welcomed 97 players over the course of 6 seasons. This segment, we are covering our sixth season, which took place just a few months ago from the time that this is recording. I think it was in November of 2025, so just at the end of that year. Today, I am joined by our wonderful production member, Allie. Firstly, welcome, Allie.
Hey everybody, hope you're enjoying the free season stuff. Thanks, Gavin, for inviting me. Really excited to talk about the other guy here tonight.
And of course, as Allie set up for me very perfectly, we have the winner of season six, David. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Gavin. Excited to chat more about the season and yeah, catch up with you too, Allie.
So throughout the course of this segment, of course, this is the last one, actually, the last installment before our cast reveal. So that's kind of exciting. But as we've done for the past 5 segments, we're going to be walking through the biggest moments from the game, biggest blind sides, and you might even hear some stories of things that you may not have seen through either our social media posts or through the live stream. So um, I guess I'll start off just with you, Ali, about sort of broadly the season six and the planning process for it, because this is the first time we've really played with the idea of a currency system in one of our games. I'm curious from your perspective, how do you think that went? And yeah, we'll start there.
I think the currency system definitely was like a curveball to players. But what was so shocking, I think, for this season is how many, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, how many curveballs the players were going to throw back at us with their own kind of devices that they brought into the game. So I think just as much as the currency kind of shook things up, um, there were other elements as well. I feel like there was a lot of different things coming at the players, but the currency, I think, had people consulting, had people collaborating very early on. People were giving their coins away right from the beginning to work as tribes, which was really interesting too, considering all the shakeups that would come.
And David, you're not a newbie to these types of games, and so I think that I always am very interested to hear from the perspective of people who have precedent and have played in games that are a little bit, you could call it more pure without playing around these major game defining twists. How did you experience the currency system, and like what went through your mind when you learned that this was going to be kind of the big predominant theme throughout the season?
Yeah, I have played with currency before, and it can become a bit chaotic, like Ali said. And I think that the way that the game started with the captains and the captains having the most currency and me being one of them, it was like, okay, game on right from the beginning. But I think that there's just so much you can do with the currency. Like, it's up to you if you want to share it or not. And that adds an extra layer of strategy to the game, because you can kind of play with like, you don't know what I have. I don't have to tell you, or maybe I want to tell you. And that came up, yeah, quite a bit, like I said.
So I want to start off in terms of specific gameplay by sort of breaking down our tribes to start with. So David, you started off on that initial Bel Air tribe and donned those kind of green buffs there. Your fellow tribe mates were Riley, Fisher, Jessica, Sky, and Seth. Who did you feel, yourself gravitating towards at the very start of the game?
I actually was vibing with like pretty much everybody on my tribe. I formed something really fast with Jess and Sky. I also formed something with Fisher and Riley. Um, Seth was kind of part of a foursome. So I was kind of in with everybody. And it would have been really hard if we had to go to tribal because I'm not sure what would have happened. So I can't predict, but I feel like that would have been rough. But I feel like maybe Seth would have been in trouble there.
Yeah. That's always it's always so hard to speculate based on, especially that early on, because I think that, and this happened kind of with Phil too, where as us as members of production, after seeing Phil's interview, a lot of us were very high on the idea that Phil would have made a deep run in the game, and
Hmm.
yet you first boot. So like, I mean,
Right.
and that's the type of unpredictability. Unfortunately, Phil and Josh were just in the position in that starting challenge that put a magnifying glass on them. So, it's kind of hard to speculate. So I feel you on that. I'm curious from any of the other tribes that happened or that formed as a result of that early twist, if there were any surprises in terms of where people sorted themselves, or if you kind of were hoping that there would be someone else that might be interested in trying to join your group there at the start.
Yeah, when we initially got there and we were chatting with everybody, I got such amazing vibes from Caitlin. And I was really hoping that she was going to join my tribe because she would have been somebody that I felt like I could have ran that whole game with. Who like I eventually linked up with in a challenge at a tree and like still hoped that we would have that chance to play together. So she was somebody that I was really bummed wasn't on my tribe.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were
Mhm.
also very high on Caitlyn. So it's yeah, and I think that one of the funny themes, I don't know if you watched much of the preseason content from season 6, but a lot of the themes were we were super excited about all these people and we're like, except there's the fact that David's in the game and David
Oh,
could
I
very
didn't
well
see
just
that.
run this anytime he wants to. So like it was
Yeah.
so funny. Like everyone we spoke about, it was like the asterisk was you
Mhm.
up there.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's funny.
I wish I
Yeah.
had my notes in front of me because literally it was like everybody, but it's like, but David has this like X factor. David has this experience. So like anybody we would run through would give all their pros and the con for everybody. It was like, but David.
Oh man, that's so funny. Was there anybody that you thought that I would play with in this game that I did or didn't?
Mm,
That's a good question. You know who I feel like we were also talking about was Bradford. And I
yeah.
feel like there was this vibe that if you guys worked together, it would be great. But if you didn't get off on the same page, it could have also been like two really dominating forces.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I got
Mhm.
really good vibes from him when we had that chat like before the game started. So he was somebody I was hoping would also be on my tribe, but we never got to experience the game together, unfortunately.
We'll start diving into the more specifics of these rounds in a moment. I have one more sort of general question. I'm curious, during one of the most notable things about your strategy that you described in the preseason was that you kind of like to, I mean, that you like to build groups and give yourselves kind of these opportunity to kind of decide where your loyalty is going to go. But
Hmm.
then you also mentioned that it can sometimes be good to kind of build a target on someone else so that there's a sort of this idea of a common enemy. Was there like did you give much consideration to that during this season, or did that strategy kind of fall to the wayside once the game started?
Because I didn't get to go to tribal with my initial tribe, I didn't really get to launch that. But had I think Seth would have been somebody that I created as an enemy because I felt like when I got there, it was two like snakes waiting to strike. Like he just gave me that strategic energy that I can feel that I have in myself. So I was like, I need to get him before he gets me. Um, so he would have been somebody that I maybe spread a few lies about and said, oh, he's Seth's coming for you. And so I think I would have gathered the troops to get Seth out.
Okay. And that makes sense based off what you're saying when you had kind of this group of two over here, another group of two over here, and then you put yourself in the middle of that, and then there's sort of not much, not much place to maneuver outside of that. So that
Hmm.
is not super surprising there. So in the first round, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Phil became the first victim of tribal council, being the first player voted out. And then following that, I mean, one of the things that you were very fortunate about is that you actually didn't go to tribal council except for the very last tribal of the pre-merge phase of the game. So broadly speaking, were there any vote outs that were particularly surprising, a little difficult for you personally because you wanted to maybe play with the person who was voted out?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I already mentioned Caitlyn. When she went, I was devastated, like actually devastated, because I was like, that is going to be one of my ride or dies in the game. So her vote out, I was, crying in the corner, but I also I know that was like a crazy tribal with the rocks and all. So I feel like that is one of the highlights of season 6. And we saw like Fisher, Jess, and Sky pull off an amazing move there and then kind of stood their ground and were like, you know what? We're gonna go to rocks. Like, so I think that is pretty epic. And then I didn't really get a chance to talk much with Josh or Phil. Who was the other vote outs before? Was it? I'm trying to remember.
James and
Um,
Brandon. It goes Phil,
James.
James, Brandon, Josh, Caitlin, and then Bradford before the tribal you
Okay.
went to.
Okay. So yeah, I had limited interactions with the others. Brandon seemed really cool. It would have been fun to link up with him. Also seemed a bit strategic, so I would have I would have been a little bit suspicious of him. And then Bradford, like I said, I was hoping to have a chance to work with him a bit, but I think that Caitlyn vote is what really got me.
yeah, I mean, what was your? I mean, I'm curious for your thoughts, Ali, as a member of, as production, of course, we always like root for these like big moments to occur, and that was certainly one of them. But what were you
Yeah.
thinking in that moment?
I remember when we were watching it, we were all kind of like eyeballing each other and stuff. It was kind of like the dream to be like the fly on the wall during a tribal council like that, from production perspective. And I just remember we were like, they've got it. They like those three, like you said, they have to hold tight. They have to hold tight. And that's, you know, not having lived through one, you have to be the tighter of the two that go in there and you get the outcome you want, which is what they inevitably did get. So it was really hard to lose Caitlin though at that point because I know she, like, Gav said she was a huge production standout in the preseason stuff. She was so strategic. I think she had so many things going that were cut short at that moment in that tribal too. So it created a bit of a vacuum where other people had to kind of fill in her strategic space. So I think it was definitely a turning point in the game. And like you said, David, one of our standout moments for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this, but during that challenge where we did have to stand by a tree and there were different sections where you had to pass the info, it was me, Caitlin, and Munchie there at that one tree. And I remember Caitlin and I kind of assuring each other, like, if there's a swap, like I'm gonna tell my people about you, you tell your people about me, let's make this work. And it did like come up. I'll bring it up later, but like, she was somebody that I had never met before the game and like just got such amazing vibes and I was really ready to rock with her. No pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, you think about all the different scenarios that can come up as a result of a swap tribe situation and getting a vote that ties and then deadlocks, and then they're forced into this sort of discussion and ultimately a decision in which it puts to the test the idea of like is the unmovable force meets the unstoppable object or whatever, or unstoppable force meets the immovable object. And in that case, I think that the side that unfortunately was not on Caitlin's side proved that they were both in that instance. And so um that is a big turning point because then of course in the next round we then see the same tribe go to tribal council, being the Malibu tribe, in which Bradford, who was on Caitlin's side in that initial tie vote, then is voted out in his own crazy sort of tie vote of his own, um
Hmm.
where in which Lexi, who had been voting with them, ultimately decided to flip against Bradford and try to build something moving forward. I want to dig into the one tribal that you did get a chance to go to, pre-merge, which was this last one. Malibu wins, immunity, sending Bel Air for the first time in the game to tribal council, in which the vote was not by any means necessarily clear. We had seen
Mm-mm.
with the exception of Caitlyn and Bradford during the original tribe phase, it was kind of these 5-1, 5-1, 4-1 decisions. But then this was kind of an interesting one. So take us into sort of your perspective on this and yeah, what your ideal outcome sort of would have been and what that would have, its significance down the line.
There's a lot to dig into with this tribal. I actually don't know how much you know about this, but when I
Spill
got
to
to the
us.
swap, I had already spoken to Caitlin and I saw Sammy and Pranav there, and I really wanted to work with them. Like genuinely wanted to go far with them as well. And so I approached them right away, like I think before anybody else could. And I like went to the bathroom with them and I was like, hey, I want to work with the two of you. Let's make something happen here. And they were so down, were they? Um, and so I was like, great, I'm gonna work with them. Caitlin's on the other side. I'll we'll each pull in people. And so I had Riley and Seth. And then, I want to like make new connections too. That's really important at a swap. Like, I don't want it to be like super boring. Like, I want this to be more of a fluid game. And then we had Ben and Munchie. And I really wanted to work with Ben, but Munchie was this big question mark. He just gave off this like super strategic energy that was really hard for me. Such an amazing player, but it was just hard. And so I saw Munchie do the same thing with Sammy and like go off and start talking to her and Pranav. So I was getting a little bit sketched out and I was like, he might have got to her that the four of them can vote together and take out one of us. So what can I do to prevent that? I had an extra vote. Riley had an extra vote, um, but I really didn't want to use them. And so I said that I had an idol to them, and if they're gonna go for somebody, don't go for me. So I pretended I had an idol, and then I went up to Sammy during the scramble, like as soon as we lost, and I said, people are talking about you and Munchie. They think you guys are a duo. And she was like, who said that? Who? And I was like, there were whispers from the other tribe while we were doing that challenge. They said, watch out for it. I never got those whispers, but I just wanted her to know that I was on to her and Munchie. And so the four of them, like I could see them strategizing, but I didn't feel like I was the target. And I felt like, okay, worst case, like we lose somebody here. I didn't want to lose Seth. And I really wanted to build that bond with Sammy and Pranav. But it didn't work out that way. I feel like that was the one vote that I didn't really have full control over, and that was okay. Um, but it definitely led to a very what's the word, chaotic merge.
Yeah, it definitely did. I know that some of the conversations were kind of based around this idea of like Belair has been kind of this dominant force throughout the game, and they
Hmm.
ultimately, I think there was a thought that entering sort of that merge phase of the game that they're especially with the original Bel Air tribe that there needed someone needed to go to try to bring it a little bit closer to even original tribe numbers there. And that made, when I heard that, made me a little bit nervous for the merge phase because then I thought maybe we're going to start getting kind of this side versus side thing and we won't really dig into the game until
Hmm.
later on in the merge when people are looking towards Final Tribal. But like you said, I actually think that that vote really queued up what was one of my personal favorite merge phases of the game to watch because truly, and I mean this, that I think that starting at the merge and even some of the people before the merge, but starting at the merge, if any of those people had been sitting at the final tribal council, I could have seen a way in which they would have been able to pitch themselves had they stayed in the game for long enough. So, I mean, that's all you could possibly ask for, right? So, um,
Totally.
I want to get into that first merge vote, in which, of course, Adrian wins individual immunity, and the target throughout the game seems to be Pranav. There was sort of a confrontation at that tribal council between Pranav and Munchie, and they kind of go back and forth a little bit. Ultimately,
Hmm.
Pranav does receive 8 votes, but then activates an advantage, which wipes out every vote and forces everyone to vote for someone that they didn't vote for. Take us through. that round from your perspective?
Yeah, that round was, like I said, so chaotic. I actually had a confrontation with Munchie right before the challenge. He came up to me and a group of others, and he like threw me under the bus and was like, David this, David that, and I went back at him. And then after the challenge, he came up to me and apologized, and we were able to like talk through, we're not going to vote for each other, and I was totally fine with it. And I didn't vote for him on that first vote. But what I will say is that I planted seeds to him and Pranav, both that they were coming for each other. So at that tribal, when they were both like, where did you hear it? Where did you hear it? I was so happy that neither of them said my name because I was definitely like giving them both that info that the other one's coming for each other. And then Fisher's name came up, which I was never letting Fisher go anywhere. Love Fisher. And so, yeah, the three of them, I feel like were definitely the targets that first vote. And by Pranav playing that, it just made one of my biggest frenemies in the game go out. So I was okay with it.
Now, David, can I ask you about your specific vote? Because you voted for somebody that nobody else voted for. You voted for Ben. What was your goal with that? Was that more planting seeds or?
Yes, I wanted to vote for Ben and blame it on somebody else. And there were so many people that loved Ben, and he was such a great social player in this game. So I had to start playing like a little bit ahead of him and also getting him to worry about certain people. So that was the start of that.
And I think that ultimately, I mean, it sets you up for then down the line when I think that there's you kind of anticipated there could be a critical junction in which, you might need to call the shot. And then, like you said, laying those seeds, I think was super, super strategic. And I think that it worked out in your favor. So the next round, Ben wins individual immunity. Sky gets voted out in a 3-2 vote. Of course, this is sort of a split tribal moment. So there's
Mhm.
a group of five, two groups of five in this round. And so I guess I should say both Ben and Fisher won individual immunity in that round. Um, you were in a group with David, yourself, obviously Riley, Fisher, Lexi, and then I think that it was Adrian as well,
Mhm.
who ultimately wound up getting voted out. From your perspective, I'm curious, A, how you arrived at Adrian as the decision, and
Mhm.
secondly, I'm curious about your perspective in these sort of double tribal council rounds in which you know that two people are going, and if it changes how you think about who you're voting out versus if it was just a traditional round, if you think Adrian might still be in the hot seat there.
Yeah, I think that first of all, I want to comment on Sky. She is such an amazing player, and like her social game was so good. So I was really bummed that she went there. I was also working closely with her, and I just want to shout out to Sky because we love Sky. But at that vote with Adrian and Lexi, Fisher, Riley, and myself. I was gonna stick with Riley and Fisher, but I also like love to make new connections at Merge. It's so important. And these two girls are two girls that I would have loved to work with. Like genuinely, I loved Adrian and I loved Lexi. So it was really hard for me to decide between the two. And that's where like I think Fisher was important because he had this relationship already with Lexi that he formed from, those previous tribals. And I was like, if Lexi's with Fisher, then Lexi is going to be with me. So that's ultimately what my vote came down to is, I want somebody that has a strong tie to my, like one of my number ones. And so was so bummed to lose Adrian though. She seems like she had a lot more to give. But also she was so good at that challenge with the endurance that I was like, this is also a good person to get rid of in case there's more of that. I know I didn't answer all your questions there, but yeah.
No, yeah, I think that that's great. I mean, I'm also curious from like, I know that, I if in an ideal world, if we had infinite time and whatever, I would love to not do double elimination rounds because
Oh,
I think that
right.
it forces dynamics into the game, but
Hmm.
they're necessary in a one day game like this. And I'm curious, do you think that Adrian would have been on the hot seat had everyone in that merge been at a single tribal council, or do you think the target may have shifted to someone else?
I think that the target would have probably shifted to somebody else because she was somebody that I really wanted to develop a relationship with in the game, like even from my initial combos with her. So I think it would have shifted. I'm trying to think of who else was in it. It was, oh, Sammy and Pranav were in it still, yeah. And they had this tight duo that had to be broken up at some point. So I feel like it could have shifted to one of them.
Absolutely.
Sense.
Oh,
And it would
did you?
soon.
Yeah,
Yes.
it would soon. The next tribal council, of course, is again another round that is kind of designed to be a double elimination. Felt a little different because it was really quick challenge and then an instant tribal after the first
Hmm.
round. But in that first sort of next round, again, Fisher wins back to back individual immunities. If we're viewing those two tribals as a unit, then both Fisher and Ben won back to back individual immunities. You were in a group with just four people, in which it was yourself, Riley, Fisher, and Pranav. And then ultimately, Pranav winds up getting the boot, and Pranav casts a vote against you. How did you feel after receiving a vote from Pranav? Were you at all worried that that vote may plant seeds in other people's minds about, about the game that you were playing?
So that tribal, that round had a lot of layers to it. I don't know if you remember, but Riley played her advantage where she left tribal and Fisher was immune. So it was just between me and Pranav. So he had to vote for me, which is
That's
something
right.
that I brought up after that. But I think that what I realized at that tribal was that Riley was much closer with Fisher than I wanted her to be because he gave her his currency to buy that advantage. And she also showed that she didn't really care about me. She was playing a Riley game. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep this in the back of my head and just remember this for the future. But also like players were like, why did you have to vote twice for Pranav? Why did you use your extra vote there? And I'm like, it was just me and him. If he had an extra vote or he had to steal a vote, I'm going home, or there's a possibility that I go home. So why not use my extra vote and make sure that I'm safe there? And that was my logic behind using my extra vote there, which I know was like discussed a lot after.
Yeah. I do remember that being a big sort of topic of discussion with everyone afterwards. In my mind, I actually saw the vision and the logic behind it, but I can also understand the other perspective of people who might have viewed it as not necessary. But to your point, who knows what Pranav could have had at that point? Who may have been
Right.
willing him tokens and what he could have snuck out of the store there. So he had already played one big thing earlier too. So it's not
Hmm.
exactly out of the realm of possibility that something else may have been going on. So then in that next sort of group there, we see Jessica get eliminated. Were you particularly close with Jessica at this point?
Oh yeah, Jessica was one of my also like ride or dies in the game, and I was really sad that she went. I also felt like she was in such a good position in the game, and she was playing a really strong game, like what she did at the Rocks, and just her social game was so great. So I feel like, you know, it was a bummer to see her go out there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was a very unfortunate series of rounds. We saw a lot of very worthy competitors go out, but it also every bad thing that happened in this game sort of cues up another good thing. I think, and the next few rounds really were super entertaining and exciting because it felt like one challenge win by the right person really would sort of alter things. And so this next round we get into. Riley wins individual immunity, and Sammy winds up getting eliminated in kind of this 5 to 1 to 1 vote. I and we've been talking a lot about Pranav and Sammy and how you've kind of were really trying to work with them. Was this the moment, or was it before that you had started to really decide in your mind the core group that you actually wanted to go to the end with?
Gavin, as soon as they lied to me at that first vote, I was coming for them. And that's just the reality of it. Like, I couldn't trust them again. And I really, really meant it when I wanted to work, like, said I wanted to work with them. I was so down to go far with them because I think it is really boring to play with just like your tribe. And I was trying to like make the game more interesting, but that one lie, I just couldn't trust them from there on. And I saw how good they both were. They were both such like these strategists, and Sammy, this little unsuspecting social snake, I should say.
Yeah, Sammy is
In a
definitely a
loving
social
way.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, of
Hmm.
course. Yeah, I mean, she will take that as a compliment. I'm fairly certain. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that is the strength of her game is she really leans on into the idea that people will probably underestimate and that she can then leverage that to make deep runs in the game, which she was successful at from in my
Hmm.
books. You similar to the first round of the merge, did not vote for Sammy. You voted for Ben. Was that another vote that was designed to set yourself up, or what was going on there?
Gavin, that might have been my winning move in the game, because I knew Sammy was voting for me. She lied to me again, so I was like, gotta get her out. But then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna vote Ben here, and I'm going to pretend that I don't know that Sammy voted for me. So I'm going to confront each of them and be like, how could you? How could you vote for me? Like, I've had your back. And it made all of them turn on each other because they were all like trying to figure out who voted for David. Because I said, Sammy voted for Ben. So it was like this really, really fun round of watching them all go kind of nuts. It might have been one of my favorite moves of the game.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
yeah, I didn't know that. And hearing that, that is like super awesome. I mean, I think that like we were talking about earlier with your how you like to kind of create these sort of enemies for people to kind of rally around. You made like everyone an enemy to each other. And so I think that
Hmm.
that was just a really smart thing. But I think that also is a testament to kind of the game that you were playing where everyone felt prioritized by you enough to think in their minds that their best path forward wasn't to come together against you, but instead was to try to appease you by figuring out who this rogue vote was. And I think that, those that can't happen without the work that went into it before the that round. So I think that's awesome.
Appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
And then we get into the final five, in which um Riley wins another individual immunity, and Ben gets voted out. We had the flushing of the rest of the extra votes that were in the game in that round. So we had two extra votes played, two against Ben, two against Lexi, and the rest of the votes unfortunately fell. The remaining two were on Ben. One of them was on Lexi. So it was a 4-3 vote for Ben to be eliminated there. What was your thought process in seeing Ben go versus seeing Lexi go?
So I saw Ben and Riley getting extremely close, like too close for me. And I was like, we have to get rid of Ben. And I got, Fisher behind that. I got Lexi behind it. And Riley had an extra vote that she didn't want to use on Ben. So she gave it to Lexi to use. And I just felt like everybody loved Ben. Like I could feel it on the jury, I could feel it in the game. And so I was like, maybe at final 6 or 7, I was like, Ben could win this game. I have to get rid of him. And so that was like the perfect time to get rid of him with the extra votes. And yeah, he was in such a great position.
Ali, from your perspective, if you were suddenly in this final five, say that you're taking David's place here in the final five. So you're surrounded by Riley, Fisher, Lexi, and Ben. Based off of how you had seen them play up to that point, who like what would your ideal outcome in that vote have been to set yourself up down in the stretch?
It's difficult because I would have probably wanted to go for Riley if
Mm,
she was available to vote for. Like you said, David, earlier, like there is that self interest there. And then we've seen, the puzzle stuff. So I feel like I really had my antennas up for her. And like strategy wise as well, even giving the extra vote to Lexi, very, very clever. But she wasn't up for vote. So in that position, I think it is about taking out a huge character. Um, you're closer with Fisher, so Ben makes sense. But I think, if I didn't have the same relationships as you, David, I would have looked to those big personalities.
Hmm.
Because Fisher, I think, too, really had like the love of the jury. And, he had that first time player kind of thing going. You make it all
Hmm.
the way. So I think, big personality at that point is who you have to go for.
That makes sense. Yeah.
it definitely makes sense. Yeah, and like I said at the start of the merge discussion, I mean, this is really where you start to see like Ben sits at Final Tribal. You can already hear the story that you would have been able to deliver. I think that we'll get into Lexi in just a moment, but I think Lexi similarly would have been able to pitch a pretty interesting case for herself there. So let's talk about her. This was another interesting round. This is really, David, where I think that you started to like stake your claim and really start to be more overt about pushing this idea about that Riley is this big threat, and that she needed to go, ultimately resulting in you voting to eliminate her alongside Lexi, forcing sort of a tie. When the vote did tie between Riley and Lexi, was there any part of you that was considering flipping your vote to just eliminate Lexi, and maybe not give Riley the chance to compete in fire?
No. So I don't know if you know this, but that final four vote was really like something I had planned out for a long time in the
Mm,
game. And I like, as I'm going through the game, I kind of study people like really fast. And I know Riley's a super emotional player. And I wanted to use that against her. And then I also know that Lexi likes to make friends. She's a social player. So Final Four comes, and what better to have Riley go against Lexi, get really upset before Final Tribal, all those emotions stirring, then send Lexi back in. I know she's going to lose a puzzle to Riley because Riley's so good. And then you have that vote on the jury. So it was kind of like this perfect storm that happened at Final Four. And I love Lexi, but man, she's a social threat. And like if she was sitting at that final tribal, she could have beat any of us. So it worked out like kind of perfectly.
And then that ultimately results in the final three being three of your original tribe members, with yourself, Riley, and Fisher. We hear a very spirited discussion from all three of you pitching your heart outs. I thought that there was a really dynamic final tribal council, and ultimately you did what you had to do. You said the correct things and you made the moves to back up the things that you said, and you earned
Sure.
5 of the 8 votes that were cast for a winner, with Riley receiving 2 and Fisher receiving 1. Um, what was your confidence level entering the final tribal council that you were going to pull out a victory?
Gavin, you never really know until like you start talking and like kind of feel the jury. But going into it, I felt like I had a really good shot. As long as I could explain my story was really different from Riley's. Because Fisher, he had his own game going and he was such a hero, and I knew that was going to be so different. But I really needed to like show that me and Riley were not playing the same game. And as the jury started asking questions, I think it became obvious that we were playing very different games in many ways. And yeah, I think like there were certain things that I said or Riley said that helped me or hurt her. But I do think Riley is an amazing player. Let me just say that. I think she played a fantastic game and she should be really proud of the game she played. I mean, yeah, it was a toss up, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like everyone comes into, the final tribal with their own criteria. But what really has me thinking is what you said about your strategy to kind of like get her flustered. Um, do you think that that's ultimately what carried some of that final tribal is that you had, the more level footing and you had the emotional high ground coming in there?
I do, Ali. I think that I've watched enough Survivor, I played enough games that, getting to Final Tribal and having like confidence and also warmth and being able to connect with a jury is so important. And I really did want her flustered, and she was pretty emotional at that Final Tribal. So that was a strategic move of mine. And we watched like Survivor China, one of my favorite seasons, and it's like Todd and then Amanda, who is one of the best players to never win, but she doesn't have that warmth sometimes in her final tribals. She seems emotionally distraught, and I think that's like what holds someone like Amanda back from winning. um and I think it is like just turn up that like confidence and smile a bit more and connect with people that really helps you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's always there's no sort of formula that you can exactly follow when you're at the final tribal council to earn yourself a victory. It's really kind of up to what the jury is feeling, and I think that at a certain point, I felt sort of momentum shifting in your direction. I felt that you were answering a lot of the questions very well, and I think that the jury felt like they were resonating with what you were saying. And so I think that that was very exciting. Were there any people that did not vote for you that you're a little bit surprised didn't vote for you? Those people were Ben, Adrian, and Munchie.
um I don't think Munchie surprised me that much. I felt like, we had a lot of ups and downs. Adrienne was a wild card. I couldn't really like tell where she stood. I was actually surprised by Ben, um, that he held such like a high, like he thought that challenges were so important. And for me, like, I don't really care who wins challenges if I'm sitting on the jury. Like, I want to hear how you got to the ends socially, strategically. So I think because he put so much stakes in like challenge wins, that was a surprise for me. How about you, Gavin?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's the ultimate outcome felt right. I don't know the exact motivations of each juror. This is where I wish that we had enough time to kind of pull each juror before they voted and like have them explain their criteria, both entering tribal, but then also hear right before they cast their vote how their perspective has shifted, because that would be super interesting to me. But to me, it did feel right that all three of you received votes. That just seemed like a fitting end to the season. And I think that
Hmm.
also the vote splits felt very reasonable, because I think that Riley played a very respectable, very good game. But I think that honestly, you just played such a dominant game that those 5 votes are certainly well earned. And Fisher, for
Thank you.
being able to invest trust and be trustworthy enough to then receive it back, I think, and have that carry you to the end. Certainly worth a vote. Kind of a unique strategy that is not often
Yeah.
followed in Survivor. Yeah. What about you, Allie?
He did the honor and integrity, and I got
He
him
did.
1 vote in the end. So
It
we'll
did,
see how
yeah.
that gets us. But I was like
Yes.
wondering, David, because I think during, preseason and casting and everything, we foresaw that you might do, like an immunity run type thing. Were you at any part holding back on that strategically, or it just kind of worked out that you were able to get that really clutch one at the end?
Um, I wasn't really holding back. I mean, like I said, I think that those challenges don't really like for me, it's more about like the social game and strategizing. So I also like as you know, like kind of invent advantages and try to like always have myself protected in a way. So challenges don't really mean much. I did try at that first one, but then I was like, oh, this is going to create a big target if I like, go all out in like another endurance challenge. So no, I didn't I didn't just like lay down, but I didn't end up winning any others aside from what I think is the most important one.
Hmm.
Yeah. Have you played Ali?
Not Survivor, only Big Brother.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
We're gonna get Allie to play at some point. It has to happen. Yeah.
Not this one though.
Not
Not this
this one.
season.
What would
Uh,
you say? Do you mind if I ask like how would you play? What's your strategy and who do you see yourself most like on our cast, if you don't mind me asking?
Probably most like Sammy, I would say. Obviously, we present really differently, but I think the fact that we both play like a very nonchalant, social, fun game.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm playing the game, I try to pretend like I don't know much of what's going on, especially when it's with people who I haven't played before. I just
Yeah,
think it works a little better that way. I play a lot of like the role playing games and like board games and stuff like that. So I think I would
fun.
have been a little under the radar, but where I tend to go with Lexi is just that willingness to make a connection with anybody, whereas Sammy was a
Mm-hmm.
little more locked in with Pranav. But
For
yeah, that
sure.
was a good question. Thanks, David.
Yeah, definitely. And Sammy's a legend, so future
Yeah.
legend of there you are, Allie.
For sure. Yeah, and I'm not into the challenges either, David. When I was playing Big
Uh-huh.
Brother, like several times I asked Gavin, like, do I even have to finish this challenge? I don't want to win anyways. And he's like, yeah, you actually do. You have to try.
That's
Like,
really
okay, I'll
funny.
time out.
Uh-huh. Riley was so good at those puzzles though, and just like dominated those challenges. So I didn't even stand a
Insane.
chance against her with those.
They were so behind in that one challenge, and it was insane the comeback with just that quick puzzle.
Yeah, that was so impressive. Actually, I was so impressed by Jessica in that challenge with her slingshot ability too, because being on the slingshot there was so hard.
I feel like Jessica has a lot of really random talents from doing all of these that like really make her a well-rounded player, but she's also another like subtle one where people I think underestimate her.
Oh, totally. Yeah, she sneaks up and
Oh.
gets you when you're not
Yeah.
expecting it. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that sort of puzzle being pulled together is one of my favorite moments in any challenge that we've done in this past 6 seasons. I mean, like you think about like the Survivor comeback at the puzzle, like you could not get a better example of that where they had such just a massive lead in that challenge and they had so much time to kind of work around this puzzle and as soon as the like your blocks fell, I sort of had this thought in mind because Riley had said during the preseason that she was really good at puzzles, and that's like she's almost like a specialist player where she doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel as confident in any other type of challenge, but if it's a puzzle, she's like, I'm gonna go all out and I'm gonna win. And so then seeing her live into that moment with Munchie, I mean, like that was just the adrenaline was pumping for me and I had nothing on the line. So, I mean, I can't even imagine how good that must have felt for her and for Munchie and for the rest of your tribe knowing that, kept you all safe there at the I think that was a
Yeah, that
swap,
was a
so.
great moment for us.
Mhm.
Gavin, can I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
Um, I I'm curious what season of CBS Survivor you would say season 6 was most like.
Oh, geez. That is a very good question that I wish I like studied up on almost.
Sorry to throw that at you. Just curious if
No,
you.
no.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of a game that kind of had a pretty um where there was kind of a tribe that really dominated in the pre-merge phase of the game. And I'm just trying to
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think.
Maybe
Um
Palau.
yeah, Palau would be a good example. And yeah, I mean you can see the that there that what would have happened if we hadn't if we hadn't swapped tribes and we had started with slightly larger groups, like it would have been, you very easily could have gotten yourself in a situation where one tribe is down to very few people, down to one person. So,
For sure.
um, yeah, yeah, that's a good example. I'm gonna steal your steal your answer there.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
Hmm. Let me ask another one on top of that. What winner would you compare David to?
Oh, that is a
Ooh,
great question. Um, I think that for me, so it's tough. I'm trying to like stick exclusively to the season 6 confines and like what happened in that, because I know that even before that, that Dave was just like a dominant force in these games. And so,
nice.
um, the name that's kind of coming to mind, because I think that one of your strengths and why nobody really caught on to you, really at any point, I feel like, was because you were able to maneuver yourself, socially very, very well. There's two people that I'm thinking of. One is, funnily enough, Kim Spradlin. For some reason, I feel like
I
having
love
the ability
her.
to be like a smooth operator and not really ever lose your cool and be able to
Mhm.
think steps ahead is a big one. And then Yul Kwan as well. I think that there's
Mm,
also sort of flashes there
Interesting.
of having the ability to kind of maneuver, um, within a group of people that you're very familiar with. But then also, I think that one thing that I really admire about Yule is his ability to sort of survey the game. And really, I think he is one of the winners that has had the best reads of the other people to then be able to make moves that will benefit him in the long run. I mean, you see that with him showing the idol to Penner at one point, right? And then using that as a way to kind of start building bonds and things like that, and
hmm
utilizing the tools that were at his disposal um, to maximum effect, even if they weren't played in order to like have power. He still made those things have power. Um, those are two that come to mind. I don't know. What about you, Allie? Do you have a different answer coming to mind?
I appreciate
Yeah,
those
no,
because I
I
love
actually
both of
was
them.
thinking. I was thinking Kim Spradlin right away as well, just because you had options, a lot of options who I feel like you could have gone to the end with who wouldn't have known that they would have been like your second or third choice. And
hmm
then I think like a more recent, and this might be like a long, weird stretch, but I think D for like a new era person. Maybe not as far as like the way that you navigated the game, but the way that you managed the relationships and the way that you strategically took certain relationships to the end, knowing how they would present in front of the jury.
I like that. Dee's an amazing player, so thank you. Yeah,
Of course.
love Kim too. Um, I have another question for you, Gavin.
Okay.
Okay, say this is like back in the day when they used to do DVD covers.
Mm.
Which 6 players would you put on your DVD cover for season 6?
I do often think about this for all of our seasons actually, and like I wish that for some of our earlier seasons in particular that we had like better media so we could like put together like posts like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that for me, I think that the 6 people who I'm putting on the cover are probably, I would say, I think Riley's going to be on there. I think
Mm-hmm.
that I'm putting Pranav on there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think that I am putting you on there, David. I think I'm putting Munchie on there. Um, I'm gonna put I think I'm gonna put Lexi on there as well because she was kind of involved in like all these really big moments in the season and survived to the final four. And then the last spot I am going to give to I'm going to go with I think I'll go with Jessica.
I
Yeah, I
like
think that
that.
Jessica
Yeah.
was a very fun, dynamic player, and I think that if it was real Survivor, Jessica would have had some like incredible confessionals too. So,
Yeah.
I think that
Totally.
that would
Yes.
have been a great cover. Yeah. What about you, Allie?
I think maybe throw Caitlin on there. Um, but I agree with pretty much everything. The one that I was like, you cannot take him off the cover is Pranav. I feel
Yeah.
like just
Hmm.
because the spice that he brought and using that crazy advantage. Um, but yeah, of course, David, you got to be on there. Winner always makes the cover.
Thank
But I
you.
think like maybe throwing a Caitlyn in there to get somebody kind of like that pre. Um, yeah, that
Hmm.
was another
Good
good one, David.
answers. Thanks.
Do
That
you
was
do you have
spicy.
different answers, David?
I think that for me, like the final three deserve to be on there, so I would include Fisher in it. So like me, Riley, Fisher, not to put myself on a cover, but like me, Riley, Fisher, and then this is where it gets tough, but I would say I think Lexi deserves to be on the cover because she was such an amazing social player and got to four and really like the last one standing aside from three original from my tribe. So that's impressive to me. And then I think that Pranav like absolutely turned the game on its head and just like did crazy things. So him, and then I would say yeah, like Jess would be another kind of like wild card. Like if she didn't go out with that vote, I could see her going all the way, and she was kind of sneaky and maneuvering her way. So I would say those six.
I think it's a great group of people. Lots of very deserving people played this season. It was one of my like, it's one of those things where you can running these games, you can almost start to run on autopilot a little bit.
Hmm.
And I sort of started to feel like if I didn't change something about the way we were running the games, that would happen to me. So I'm very glad that we started doing these sort of pre-game interviews with the players. It made me feel way more invested, and then also getting to talk about it with production with Ali and Will before the season, and then our winners as well. It made everything feel like there's just a lot more investment, I think, overall. And getting to know how the players might play and comparing that. I don't know. It was fun to be able to start to try to predict what some of the people who I didn't know might do in this game. So, very excited about that. Are there any closing thoughts that either of you have, David or Ali, before we wrap up this segment?
For me,
Well,
this
I
was
just want to.
great just
Oh,
hanging
go
with you
ahead. Yeah.
guys. No, I want you to be the one to have the last word, David. So I
Okay.
just wanted to say it was fun being included and hanging with you guys and reliving the season. It was so fun to watch all the different challenges, all the different votes. You guys killed it. So yeah, kudos.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun talking about the game with both you, Gavin and Ali. So thanks for doing that. And I just want to say, like, Gavin, your game is so incredible. Like what you have created, I feel like it has such an amazing foundation already, and I just can see it becoming like even better and better if that's possible. So I think you should be really proud of this community that you've also created and the vision and how you're able to like have this full experience in the time that you allot. Because like some games can go on for days and you still don't get this same like experience. So I just want to like commend you on your game. And then like season six, I just had a obviously fantastic time. I thought the cast was like top notch. Like you said, everybody from the merge on, I could see winning the game as well. Everybody was there to play. Nobody was just like, okay, I want to go home now. So yeah, thank you for this incredible experience. And Ali,
Well,
thank you too for helping Gavin.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I mean, it could not happen without our incredible production team, everyone who helps plan these seasons for, in the case of season 7, months in advance. And so cannot wait for those who have watched every segment. Thank you so much for watching all 6 episodes of this Road to Second Chance. We are so excited because up next Saturday, you're going to be in for a treat, which is going to be sort of a teaser of all 20 players who are going to be joining us for season 7. And of course, mark your calendars, May 30th, that Saturday. You can also join us in the park if you'd like to watch the game unfold live. If you're not able to join us, we invite you to tune into the live streams as well. But other than that, thank you, Ali and David, so much for your time this evening, and look forward to talking to you all soon.
Yeah, thank you both. Good seeing you, Ali. Good seeing you, Gavin.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.